Junkies. It's been a while since we've reviewed a new streaming series, and this is the new Disney Plus Alien Earth series, part of the Alien franchise. Who doesn't like Alien? Well, I mean, maybe people who don't like horror films don't like Alien. I mean, of course, there was the original Ridley Scott film, then there was Aliens, then there was Alien 3, Alien Romulus, Prometheus, then there was another Prometheus. They made Alien Covenant. There's been a lot of films, and I have to say, I think the most recent movie iteration of Alien, I thought it was a bit gonzo by the end, but I thoroughly enjoyed it. So this is a series that's landed on Disney Plus. Now, going into this, I have huge causes for concern. Star Wars, I don't think, has massively or successfully translated to the small screen, with the exception of things like The Mandalorian and Andor, which I have to confess I am halfway through season 2. It's dense, isn't it? It's lovely. So there are the kind of rare occasions when it can work. Marvel, I can only really hand on heart say WandaVision did it for me with the Marvel Cinematic Series. Everything else has been a bit kind of low-key. It hasn't been low-key, that's part of the problem. It's been high-key, but just not very good. So consequently, going into this, I thought, oh no, they're going to go fucking Disney are going to go and do the same fucking thing to fucking Alien. You can't do it to Alien. In space, no one can hear you scream, but oh my God, and on Disney Plus, no one can see you scream. It has Noah Hawley at the heart of it, creator. He's the guy who was behind Fargo, the TV series Fargo, which I have to confess was a surprisingly successful translation of an incredibly emblematic and iconic film to the small screen. So this entire series is essentially set 2 years before the events of the original Alien film. So if you're looking at the kind of the timeline, the chronology, the lore, L-O-R-E, of Alien, this is right at the beginning there. This is origin stuff. It's got a curious cast, so not necessarily household names, but some really kind of, stable, meaningful, strong, powerful actors. We've got Sydney Chandler in there, actually. I think it might be her first series. She's the daughter of Kyle Chandler. Got Alex Lawther in there, who's we love most from End of the Effing World, but he's a great bangs them in British actor. Essie Davis, I think she's Australian, or she New Zealand, but she was in The Babadook. She's been in so many kind of Australian indie films. She was brilliant. She was in Nitram. And in amongst some of the other actors, there's also Timothy Olyphant, who I don't particularly know from anything, but I tell you what, I'm a bit of an Olyphant fan. So episode 1 starts with kind of in a roundabout way across the course of the episode. It establishes and kind of, rams home the fact that there are 5 companies, corporations that essentially control, run Earth and run the solar system. Because this came originally from Ridley Scott, and because Blade Runner came from Ridley Scott, some are saying that the Ridley Scott universes of Alien and Blade Runner could fuse. One thing I would say from the get-go before we get into what works, what doesn't work, incredibly rich. It carries over that Alien aesthetic, and it has a heavy dosage of Blade Runner aesthetic in there too, which isn't particularly different because let's not beat around the bush, they're both created by the same director. So this starts, so we have a very much a strong sense that the universe, the solar system, Earth, corporations like we are now, Tesla and all that kind of stuff, and Meta. Now one of those companies is called Prodigy. The reason that's interesting and important is that at the beginning of this series, a great big spaceship, the USCSS Maginot, as in the Maginot Line from World War I, which ended up being a kind of useless fortress-like defence against the Germans. A lot of money spent, but kind of useless. So the front of episode 1 is very much about this spaceship crashing. We lose an entire crew right at the beginning of the episode, and I have to say they did a very good job of kind of replicating and recreating that kind of 70s awkwardness of the original film with John Hurt and Ian Holm and all their kind of banter and them all sat around and talking to each other. There's one survivor in the group. There's only one survivor, and that's a security officer, Morrow, and he's a cyborg with synth qualities. I mean, you've basically got 3 different types of humanoids. Well, you've got humans, and then you've got cybernetically enhanced humans, which are cyborgs. You've got artificially intelligent beings, which are synths, and then you've got synthetic beings downloaded with human consciousness. And they're hybrids, wow. And so this ship has a precious cargo, it's crashed. We've got this brilliant character who's kind of like, what's his name? The boy He's called the Boy Cavalier. He's the CEO of the Prodigy Corporation, played by Samuel Blenkin. He's a brilliant kind of wiry, funky, weird, but evil and sort of sinister kind of tech entrepreneur. So this ship's crashed. You've got precious cargo. It could infect us alien Earth. It's hit Earth. I have to confess, to begin with, I thought it was a bit slow in the build. It was a bit so we established, and I thought the flashbacks and flash forwards to what was going to happen to the original kind of crew, they were a bit kind of Disney. It was a bit TV. It was a bit small screen. With the passage of time, this series becomes more and more big screen savvy. They then introduce the idea of Sydney Chandler's character, where there's a terminally ill child who's called Marcy. And she is terminally ill, and they've developed this system where they can transfer their human consciousness into a synthetic body. A whole bunch of kids, and it's called Neverland because these are like the Lost Boys, but they're the Lost Boys and Lost Girls. And then she becomes she's called Wendy. So again, it's on the Disney Plus kind of streaming platform, and of course they can have free access to, you know, footage of Peter Pan is screened everywhere, and it's kind of, I don't know, there's something, I quite like that added detail of the Peter Pan thing. I mean, a lot of the Alien films kind of riff on the kind of mythos, don't they, of Romulus and Remus, and, you know, there's always metaphors, and then like the Maginot, you know, and all that kind of stuff. So I like the idea that now we've got kind of like we've got the Lost Kids. So we've seen the Maginot crash, the Xenomorph, a massive alien Xenomorph kills loads of them. It's all very stressful and tense. We've had one survivor in the form of Officer Morrow, who's a very cool customer, but his mission, you know, it's that weird thing in Alien, there's always the one like Ian Holm. Their mission is to protect the cargo and to complete the mission at any cost, and it always speaks to the fears we have of AI. I have to say, in this first episode, the design was brilliant. They had a really tricky thing to do here, where they had to match the production design, the digital design. It had to look high-tech, it needed to look futuristic, but they had to kind of replicate what they envisaged futurism was back in the 1979 film. I mean, obviously it's easy because of the original film, you just copy it. But that sense of when it was done, I was thinking existentially, bear with me. When they made the original film in 1979, they'll have made all that stuff thinking this is the future. Whereas for this, they had to make what was made for the 1979 film as if it was the future, knowing it's nothing like the future at all. But they did a good job of the sound effects, the sound design, all that kind of stuff. If I had one major criticism of episode 1, it was a little bit slow. I found the characterization a little bit plinky-plonky. But the other thing I found a bit frustrating with this was I found all of the jump scares, all of the kind of cutaways, all of the kind of jump backs in time, all of the hisses and the sudden rushes and the kind of sounds. I found it all it was a bit on the nose. It was a bit predictable, and I got worried. I was thinking, oh man, is this because this is on the small screen and they've got to look after all the kiddie widdies that are kind of going off to see Peter Pan on the rest of the Disney Plus thing? But the most fucking powerful, what's the best part of episode 1 is basically they've got lots of different specimens. Yeah, you've got the face huggers, you've got the fucking Xenomorph, but you've also got, less successful I think, is the eyeball on legs. Is that like a monster in Dungeons & Dragons? That didn't really work for me quite so convincingly. I mean, it was pretty efficient, but, you know, that one eye kind of looking around, it verged into kind of comedy a bit. But my God, they've got these strange leech-like larvae. And I'm sure that when the larva lands on the first soldier, so it's like imagine a white slug. I'm sure it was descended on a fishing line, wasn't it? Are we led to believe that was Morrow who did that? Was Morrow? Because I've got this feeling. The great thing about Alien is, after the first film and then after the films with Michael Fassbender, you can never trust a synth, can you? Never trust a synth, because at the end of the day, they're mission orientated. Oh, and quickly, before we get on to the fucking leech-like thing, Timothy Olyphant, I tell you who Timothy Olyphant was really giving me kind of vibes about, and is it vibes I was getting kind of nostalgia for. I was getting definite Blade Runner, Rutger Hauer vibes, replicant vibes from Blade Runner. It's partly to do with his bleached hair, but also his age and his sternness and severity of face. But he's the kind of, not the child catcher, but he's the kind of, what do you call them? Au pair. He's the one who looks after all of the kids. But back to the fucking leeches. So the leeches goes down, it goes in here, you've got, it's like a slug, and then at some point you get two of these soldiers that have been sent in, and then you just know it's going to come back. But anyway, it goes in, and then it goes into, I think, does it go up his nose, or it goes into his ear or something? But I couldn't see, it was too dark. Can someone tell me what happened? Did it go in and then grow into, or did it pull his brain out? Because it seemed to become a really large blobby thing that fed on it, or fed on the dead soldier. So that was nice, the idea that you can get alien type shit going under the skin and under the body and in the body and all that kind of stuff. So I liked the squirminess, I liked the kind of reach out from just the xenomorph and just the facehuggers. There is a danger with Alien that the scares are always the same kind of scares, which is why I think this has to go somewhere different. But what I did like was they threaded right at the end of episode 1 a deep emotional reservoir of connection as you realise that Wendy, who of course is an 11-year-old girl called Marcy who's been put in her body, realises she has a brother who's in the crash site working for the Prodigy. And she has that connection and she now wants to go and save him. And so we have a sibling thing, we have a sibling connection. Romulus and Remus again. We've got a sibling connection, and I'm sure there's probably people who are into Alien who go, yeah, you fucking doofus. This is all the characters from film 4. I don't know, I'm just watching this cold because I don't bring my notebooks to these things. But anyway, I like the fact that, there's a filial sibling connection by the end of episode 1. And episode 1's called Neverland. I love subtext. Episode 2, Mr. October. Mr. October being the name that, because of course Alex Lawther is the brother of Wendy. That's what we discovered at the end of episode 1. So Mr. October, we will discover who Mr. October is. So the boy Cavalier, CEO of the Prodigy Corporation, he and Essie Davis have a really intense, quite interesting conversation. He's really wiry and fidgety and itchy and edgy and all the things you expect a tech entrepreneur to be. And he kind of dresses informally and he sort of hangs off chairs when he's looking at things. He's like an overactive sort of monkey. But Essie Davis is like, I don't know if she's like really a maternal figure, but she's kind of his assistant, or certainly his colleague. But he says to her in a conversation that the reason he's created this tech so that you can put essentially the brains and essences of people into synthetics is so that they could live forever, and so he could create creatures that are way smarter than him so that he could have more interesting conversations. I thought, I quite like this. I thought, oh my God, so within the Alien universe, everything goes fucking wrong because we've got basically a tech entrepreneur who wants to have a more interesting conversation. He gets really bored in conversation. It wasn't very nice for Essie Davis's character. I became an alcoholic, not only because of this, I'm not blaming it on the company that I kept, but I was bored most of my life in most social situations. So I just drank myself fucking stupid. And then I started to take excessive amounts of drugs to try and make what we were talking about even more interesting. But then I became one of the boring ones. So anyway, I just quite like the idea that basically all of this tech around the kind of synth, putting the bodies, minds and souls of dying humans into synths is a way of prolonging the human life in an artificial body and perhaps making someone really smart. We get the Weyland-Yutani, head of the Weyland-Yutani kind of corporation phones them up and goes, we want our ship back. We're coming over to get the stuff from our ship. Because of course they're up to no good because there's live specimens on this fucking ship. It's like someone says later in the episode, specimens, aren't they supposed to be dead? But these are alive. Maybe to be brutally honest, to be fair to the Weyland-Yutani crew, maybe they thought they were all dead, but they weren't. So they want to secure that. So we've got the idea of global politics or interstellar politics, which is great. I love that. It's Dune-like, really like the kind of dystopian, futuristic sense of we're all tokens and we're all run by corporations, right down to Alex Lawther's character in the flashback. He tries to resign from the Prodigy Corporation, but he can't. He's not allowed. He's still got another 7 months on his incredibly sort of, restrictive Oyster card that he puts in the machine, and it says, you've got 7 more months, you've got to work. So basically, most of this episode is in this high-rise block, trying to make safe the crash. But we've got xenomorphs running around, we've got the weird eyeball thingy running around, brilliant scene. What's his name? Timothy Olyphant, the kind of synth guy. He plugs himself into basically the database of the Maginot ship, and he just stands there and he kind of just gives you all the information. Just like when you pump it into Google, you go search, you go, I've got all the information. We begin to discover that Wendy's powers are extraordinary. She's incredibly, she can do so much. She can read things, she can hear things, she can code things, she can uncode things. Poor old coders. I didn't realise, did you know that AI is putting so many people out of work? You'd have thought that coders would have been the safest, but apparently AI is putting coders out of work, people who do coding. There's a great moment in this where they're kind of clearing, they're kind of all chasing around. Alex Lawther's trapped in a lift. Wendy realises that it's her brother. She wants to rescue him. We're all going, oh no, Alex Lawther. And then there's this weird moment where Alex Lawther, they stumble across a sort of dandies party. Everyone's dressed up for some kind of Regency do, where they've all got the wigs and they look like King James. They look like they walked out of a costume drama. They're all having a party. Meanwhile, there's fucking xenomorphs and aliens flying everywhere, and they're not even aware of it because they're having the time of their lives. Well, they become aware of it because they might be having the times of their lives, but then they have no lives because they have their insides torn out and turn into curtains. We didn't get any more of the kind of leechy kind of things. We've got a lot of xenomorph action. Again, I'm finding the xenomorph action, we've seen it so many times now. So yes, there's the ubiquitous shot where you see the profile of Alex Lawther and then you see the face and the teeth come in. It funnel eats someone's face. Brilliant. You always know in an alien film when a soldier, one of the soldier actors appears in a scene, has a talking moment, is very British, not brilliant at delivering the lines. It stands out like a mile. You know he's going to be eaten. You know he's going to have his face eaten by the alien xenomorph, and it didn't disappoint. There hasn't been anything particularly innovative, I would say, in terms of monsters yet. Nothing new re the xenomorph. We got a huge egg dripping, sort of vulva-like egg. They say, Timothy Olyphant says it could be either flora or fauna. It immediately made me go, well, I've always wondered, what is fauna? Fauna is animals, flora is flowers. By the end of this episode, we have a wonderfully intimate moment between Alex Lawther's character Joe and Wendy. One is they're basically siblings. And, Alex Lawther kind of says, well, what did you say on Christmas Day? And she says the line, and he's like, oh my God, you are my sister in a new body. This is amazing. Which I suppose, even though you had been told by your dad that, she'd had a funeral and she was dead, if you suddenly had your sister back, in spirit and in personality, albeit in a completely different body, you'd take that, wouldn't you? And there was a very intimate moment. And this is where actors like Alex Lawther, and I have to say, I thought Sydney Chandler was very good too. There's real depth to them. And it's difficult for Sydney Chandler because, of course, she has to also play slightly that synthetic version of the sister that Alex Lawther lost. But Alex Lawther always gives you deep reservoirs of, emotional kind of gooiness. And so it's just nice to have that gooiness in there. Just as a headline, I'm loving Sydney Chandler. I think she's fantastic. I think she's enigmatic. I think she's quirky. I think she's occupying that really difficult role. David Johnson did a really good job of it in Alien Romulus. It's really, unique type of acting to get the synth human thing right. Alex Lawther, deep, real, humanistic. He's like a younger Ben Whishaw. Essie Davis, I haven't seen enough of her yet, but I'd like her to have a bit more. Samuel Blenkin is excellent as the kind of tech entrepreneur guy. Morrow I'm enjoying, but I'm also really, really enjoying Timothy Olyphant. I'm loving the crossover in production design with Blade Runner. All around the kind of high-rise building into which the Maginot had crashed, they went for the same kind of orange strip lighting around panels in the halls as there was for the Tyrrell Corporation in Blade Runner. If we hear the name Tyrrell Corporation in this, then we know there's crossover, and I just want there to be crossover. I want the two things to collide, and I want them to do that and superimpose. So by the end of this second episode, we're on a cliffhanger. Alex Lawther gets fucking taken off the edge of a fucking something or other by a xenomorph. Wendy's like, I've got to go and rescue him, whilst leaving one of the other lost boys looking after what she calls this omelette, which I thought was a really nice way to describe a collection of eggs in Alien. An omelette. So all in all, at this stage, 2 episodes in, that's all that's landed, you've got 2 movie-sized episodes. Go and indulge in them. They're brilliant. I really enjoyed it. Very slow beginning, but episode 2 really picks up. And some strong acting too.